So, thank you for joining me on Dodgers Tailgate. My name is Matt, and I am joined by David Rosenthal. So, David's one of the three co-hosts on the Incline. Earlier, or a couple weeks ago, we had Jake Reiner, one of the co-hosts on the Incline, coming on here as well. So now we got David joining us. So you might not have seen the Incline, but I am for sure you were for sure have seen his tweets from the real D Rose, a hilarious live tweeter, one of the best in the game one of the best in the game. So thanks for joining me, man.
No problem, man. I appreciate the kind words and happy to talk some Dodgers and whatever else we got going today.
Yeah. So before getting into all the crazy Dodgers dramas going on, all the fun hot takes that we're gonna get right off our chest, have you always been had a true passion for arguing? Like, are you one of those people where, like, since recess as a kid, first, second grade, as soon as some topic comes up related to sports, you gotta get into kind of fisticuffs?
The short answer would be yes. I've always had a taken a liking to debate per se. I'm a big fan of the underdog, playing devil's advocate, and if I see something that I disagree with, then chances are I'm going to call it out. And that's particularly true on Twitter and online, where people are emboldened by the keyboard warrior mindset, and I'm gonna sometimes you just got to put them in check.
So are you somebody with like every single thing you've said, and I've kind of been wondering about this as well. I even know if I would like clear this test or be able to check this off on a test, but like would you say the same things you say on Twitter to an athlete like to their face? Like do you think you'd be able to stomach that?
Yes, because normally I don't really slander too many athletes,
Mm.
especially, I tend to not slander any Dodgers for sure. Okay, there's one exception, Chris Paddock. I am not very kind to online. But yeah, I mean, yes, obviously I'm going to be respectful about it. I'm not going to be one of those, crazy fans who take it way too far. I'm not going to talk about his family. I'm not going to do anything weird like that. But in
Hmm.
terms of trash talk at a game, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. Because I think that's like the way crazier part, the internet, that like we have to kind of remind ourselves, like, oh no, like this actually is kind of the real world. So I was
Yep.
just wondering about that. Is like in your head, like, okay, what is the line to not cross? Like, where does it go? And I think it's pretty cut and clear.
It's definitely clear. I mean, there's a very defined line of, trash talk about someone's baseball ability or, decision making, if it's a manager or a general manager or just someone stupid online. But you
Mhm.
cross the line when you bring up family and kids and looks. And that's just once someone does that, they automatically lose the argument. That's just how it goes. So
Mhm.
you gotta keep it, on topic.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. And one of the things like I'm really interested in, because especially like a lot of your, I guess, art of live tweeting, because it is kind of an art of live tweeting. I guess that's where we find ourselves now in today's age. But how much
Mhm.
of your day is revolved just around like what can I tweet during this upcoming game?
Probably none at all, honestly.
So it's all off the cuff. It's all
It is off
freestyle.
the cuff. I mean, I've been watching the Dodgers a long time. I've had Twitter a long time, and as we just talked about, I've been arguing a long time. So if I see something happen in a game and I happen to think of something witty or whatever I'm feeling, then I'll probably tweet it. But I don't spend any of my day planning what can I live tweet for the game per se. Obviously, I have thoughts throughout the day and things that cross my mind, but I'm not really planning out like, oh, if this dude does this, then I'm gonna say that. It's just kind of
Mhm.
natural.
I see. I see. Because there's so many of the lines you have where it's not just the average tweeter. Like it's not just the average, oh, Muncy just hit a moonshot or Bueller's absolutely shoving. Like I think it's kind of interesting how you take it to the next level. And instead of like instead of Bellinger hits home run, it's like now everybody. What did you say? Like with Bellinger's home run and shit, like everybody has to climb to the highest ground and pray for.
Yeah, yeah. Find high ground and seek shelter. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
I've just been around baseball my whole life. I've watched a lot of movies. I've just been around talking smack with people all the time. So phrases and stuff like that have just been in my head, and sometimes you just think of something good and it works out online, I guess.
hmm Now, are there any that like you have to put in your top 10? Like your when it comes time for your live Twitter like Hall of Fame speech, and you got to reminisce upon a couple. Obviously, besides the Blake Treinen, we'll get into Blake Treinen afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there any where you're like, you know what, I want to be remembered for this?
Um, I can't think of one specific one per se, but I think like people who successfully utilize Twitter the right way, I think, or not the right way, but the most effective way for people to enjoy it, will use videos and make comparisons like this guy just did this, and then they'll link it with a video or whatever. So I think the use of like multimedia in that sense is critical for the successful tweet per se. But
Mhm.
in terms of Hall of Fame, I can't really. I'll probably have to get back to you on that one. But I think that the Treinen meme and all that stuff, it's stupid, but it's funny, and I have a good time doing it. So I'll probably just go with that one for now.
hmm hmm So now I want to start heading into Dodger talk. So today was the first day where we're able to vote for our All Stars. So
Mhm.
as of right now, what is your All Star? At least for Dodgers only, what does it look like for you?
For Dodgers only right now on offense, I'm going to go with Muncy, obviously, and Chris Taylor. It's going to be tough for Taylor to get in because he's listed as an outfielder. And you got guys like Acuna, Winker, Castellanos, and such. So it's going to be tough to get him in there. What I think Dodgers fans should do is continue to vote for him, and he'll probably get on that. I forget what they call it, but it's like the last man in, and they have five
I like the
guys.
reserves.
Yeah, it's like you vote for the final spot and they list five guys. I think Taylor's going to be on that list, so you
Mhm.
should keep voting for him. And then pitching wise, all four starters have an argument. They really do. And then you throw in Jansen, who's been actually excellent this year, contrary to what some people think. And then you got Blake Treinen, who's also been excellent. It's tough for non-closers to get in, but right now I would go with Kershaw, Arias, Bauer, and Jansen.
hmm hmm Now for the like, I want to get back to Chris Taylor because I blogged the other day that this is like one of the most underrated players in baseball, if not the most
Yeah,
underrated.
absolutely.
So some idiot from, I don't say some idiot, somebody who's uninformed, who's a Cleveland Indians fan, might not have ever heard of Chris Taylor or paid a lot of attention to him. Like,
Yeah.
what is the elevator pitch?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry, I cut out.
Okay. So what's the elevator pitch for Chris Taylor being an All Star for someone who's like a Cleveland Indians fan who doesn't pay much attention to the Dodgers?
Got it. I mean, look, he's 16th in Major League Baseball in WAR. He plays all over the diamond. His weighted runs created plus is 149, which is in the upper, I don't know, 5% of the league. And he does it all by not having a constant position in the order, position in the field, and if once Pollock and all these guys come back, he doesn't have consistent playing time. And this guy just continues to produce at a all-star level. Clearly, if you look at his numbers, and it's pretty remarkable that he's able to do it without a set in stone consistent role, playing second base, shortstop, left field, center field, right field. He may not deserve to start because there's a lot of talented outfielders uh, in the National League. But if he's listed as a second baseman, I think he would be an all-star starter. Like I said, unfortunately, he's not. But to the average fan, I would go first of all, look at the numbers. Second of all, just watch a couple Dodgers games. Watch that 14 pitch at bat, which he fought off countless foul balls and then ended up hitting an opposite field double to essentially win the game. And just watch him play the game, because when you see him play the game, he does everything seamlessly: defense, offense, running. And he's a special player, and he's going to get paid a lot in free agency. I'll tell you that
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody who took that next step this year, it's definitely Chris Taylor. And I think one of the interesting parts about him is that he's been a glue guy. He's been a guy that kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah,
And even I feel like Kike was more prominent than him just because of his crazy personality and then his interaction with the fans. Like Chris Taylor's much more low key and just kind of even keel. But this is that year for him. So now I think it puts us in an interesting spot where it's like, okay, well, who do we pay? Has that thought like crossed your head at all? It's like, okay, well, how do we make room for Chris Taylor? But then does that mean Corey's gone if we make room for him? Like yada yada yada.
yeah, it's a tough decision because it's not just Chris Taylor and Corey Seager. Um, Clayton Kershaw is going to be a free agent. Kenley
Mhm.
Jansen is going to be a free agent after this year. Cody Bellinger in about 2 years is going to be a free agent. So they're going to have to start making these decisions. I don't see them retaining all of those guys I just listed. I just don't. I don't think Kershaw's going anywhere. I don't think he's going to throw one pitch for any other team ever in the history of his career. But in terms of the shortstop debate, it may come down to Corey Seager if they're going to pay Corey Seager or Cody Bellinger. And, as unfortunate as some of the injuries have been in his career, Corey Seager has been injury prone, albeit a lot of it's not his fault. And then Chris Taylor, on the other hand, is going to cost about half as much as Corey Seager. Can play shortstop, can play second base, can play the outfield. Defense is not even in the same category as Corey Seager. It's way higher. So it is an interesting debate. And then you got Gavin Lux, who has shown he can play shortstop and he can hit at an above average clip as well. So, it's Andrew Friedman's got his hands full. It's going to be an interesting decision. Obviously, Corey Seager is also a Scott Boras client, so that's going to make the asking price higher than it would be if he wasn't. But what it comes down to me is Corey Seager's defense. I don't know if a team is going to be willing to pay him shortstop money when he's not going to be able to play at an average level defensively. I think a position change is in store for Corey Seager, whether that's first base, third base, or even DH in the American League. So honestly, I don't know. I would hate to see Chris Taylor not be re-signed. And last thing before I'll shut up is you get the Kike Hernandez comparison, but let me just make something very clear. And while I love Kike Hernandez and he is a Dodger hero, he helped them win that World Series. They don't win that without him. Chris Taylor is miles above above Kike Hernandez as a baseball player. He just is. Offensively, 100%. Defensively, Kike may have an edge at second base essentially, but that's about a wash in my mind. But overall, Chris Taylor offensively, miles ahead of Kike Hernandez.
Mm-hmm. So as I start to kind of wrap this up and just going over the Dodgers season as a whole right now, I mean, granted, we are in third place, but we've been playing phenomenal. I mean, we literally are one of the best teams, still one of the best teams in baseball, and we just got one of our best players back, an MVP from literally about 2 years ago. So are you happy with where we are? Like for the most part, or one, so are you happy? And two, is this kind of where you expected us to be around beginning of June?
They're playing good baseball. I wouldn't say I'm happy about it, because I'd be much happier if we were in first place,
Sure.
5 games ahead of the Padres or whatever. But look, they got thrown a curveball with Dustin May's injury. They got thrown another curveball with Cody Bellinger's injury, another curveball with Corey Seager's injury, and they're still, I think the third best record in baseball right now. So look, they're going to be fine. They really are. But the wild card game is not out of the question, unfortunately. The San Diego Padres are a good baseball team. They are. And as much as I clown on their fans online, deservedly so, because they're just out of control in many ways, their baseball team itself is very, very legit. Tatis is a superstar, and their pitching staff with Darvish is very, very quality. So it's going to be a battle. It really is. I think this division is going to be decided by 1, 2, 3 games at the end of the year. So the Dodgers just got to keep pace. They're going to get guys back, as we've seen in the past week, and they're going to play up to their level of competition. I'm excited for Tony Gonsolin coming back too, so we can get rid of these bullpen games.
Do you want to get the bullpen game rant out of the way? Like, I mean, that veers off in a completely different direction, and we can just go back to what we're talking about right now. But I mean, if you want to rant, it's all you, man.
I mean, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand how a billion-dollar organization can't find some guy off the street to throw 5 innings and then go to the bullpen. The bullpen game just sets up your team for failure. It really does, because it doesn't just affect one game. It affects the game before it, because you want to conserve your guys for the actual bullpen game, and then the game after it, because your entire bullpen is taxed. So you're basically asking your starter, hey, can you throw 115 pitches regardless and go 7 innings? So it puts an immense amount of pressure on your starter for the next day, your starter on the day before. And it just, while the bullpen itself actually gets it done more often than not, as we've seen this year, it just sets up your team for failure. You're forfeiting 2 outs at the plate, and I just can't stand them. But that's just where we're at with baseball these days. But we'll see. Hopefully we can get the universal DH in there next year, and that'll change some things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Praying that happens. Game is so much better without it. But so I mean, now I kind of want to move over to bullpen talk, and that's how we'll wrap this up. But so you've had the chance to interview Jimmy Nelson and Blake Treinen. So I mean, between those guys, how much more have you just learned about pitching? And like from those interviews, you're like, wait, I wasn't looking at baseball possibly the most correct way. Like, is there a bit of education involved with those interviews?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they give you an insight into their process, into their game planning, their mind itself, and their attitude. And that's the thing that you can't really see when you watch baseball. Yeah, you can see the sequences pitchers use. You can say, oh yeah, he started him with a backdoor slider, then went up with a fastball. But until you talk to these guys, you can't really see or learn about their actual mindset in the moment, in pregame, postgame, off days, all that kind of stuff. So you learn a little bit about their entire process, not just on the mound, but in their head and off the field. So that's a cool little window into the mind of a baseball player that we've been fortunate enough to interview. But both of them were super cool, super nice, and most importantly, very informative about their skills and their life.
Hmm. Between both of those guys, has there been any moment of like true epiphany where you're like, holy crap, like I didn't even realize that this was really going on in the lives of a baseball player? And whether it's like, cause with Jimmy Nelson, you talked about, or the conversation revolved around mental health, and with Treinen, it was Bauer or him helping Bauer with the slider, which has been one of his best pitches this year. So between those interviews, what were like the big just like I said before, like just big epiphonic moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that you realize when you're just talking to these guys is because when you're watching them on TV, they're kind of like, superstars and superheroes and athletic role models. But when you talk to them, it's just like you and I are doing right now. They're just he's just a guy. He's just a normal, down to earth guy, and that's the thing you don't really get to experience, obviously, when you're just watching them because they're on national television playing for a professional sports team. So you kind of forget that they're basically just like you and I. And that's where the humanity aspect of baseball comes in. And that's kind of why I don't get too into the slander of baseball players and athletes online, maybe with one Chris Paddock exception. But got a bone to pick there. But especially with Jimmy, he had some struggles mental health wise, being injured and just not knowing what his future was holding. So it's very cool to see these guys perform on the field and just be normal guys when you talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Because and especially in the Trident interview, I think that one was especially great because we learned that hey, everything's like okay in the clubhouse. Like this, it might not be as entertaining as some other teams with like props and all things like that, but everybody's getting along. And especially with like Bauer learning from somebody like Trinan, who isn't, I should say, like not taking anything away from Trinan, he's just not on the same level as Bauer is right now. So for Bauer to take something from him and then actually put it in games and just utilize it and actually prosper, I think that's an amazing telltale sign of like, wait, no, like everything's good. Like Bauer's not a distraction. Everything that we thought of and feared about and just ruminated on, oh yeah, no, he's just kind of a normal dude who just likes to be a troll on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, look, Treinen got some help with his slider from Bauer, and Treinen obviously, is going to offer what he can to Bauer too. But on that front, like I said, they're just guys. Like they're just normal guys. And when they're on a team together, they're in a clubhouse together, they're gonna get along. That's just what's gonna happen naturally. They're playing for the same goal. They're on the same side. And all the stuff about the clubhouse, worried about the clubhouse, that's just classic online, you know, uninformed opinion of people who basically wanted that to happen. And
Yeah.
I hate to break it to them, but that's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is they're fighting for the same thing. They're going to help each other, and it's working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now, like my last question, it has just like the in probably kind of following the biggest storyline of the NL West this year is obviously like it's going as expected, but the Giants have been so goddamn good. And
Hmm.
I said, think like maybe a couple weeks into April, like all right, middle of June, that's when I'll make my opinion to see if they're actually for real or not. And now the middle of June's about 2 weeks away, and I'm like, oh shit, they're actually really good. So do you think that they're eventually going to fall off? Like, where do you think they end up? What do you think the end of the NL West is going to look like?
I do think the Giants are going to fall off. I'm not buying it. I'm simply not. Alex Wood, World Series hero. I don't see him lasting. I don't see the longevity there. Anthony Discalfini, we've already seen him fall off. Cueto, there's health concerns there. There's age concerns there. I just don't know. Gosman is legit. I would not want to face Kevin Gosman in the wild card game. I'll say that. But in terms of my final predictions, I honestly don't know who's going to win the NL West. It's going to be the Dodgers or the Padres. You can take that to the bank. But those two teams are going to be 1-2. I think the Giants barely missed the playoffs. I think they're there. They're right there in the wild card race towards the end. But I think, the Brewers are going to make a push. The Cubs right now look very good. The Cardinals and Cubs are both right there. And then you got the NL East, which is a complete dumpster fire right now. I'm not buying the Mets, but when you have Jacob deGrom, you can't really count him out. So NL West, it's a coin flip for me. It really is. I hope the Dodgers avoid the wild card game. But if they do happen to play in it, you got 4 options in the starting rotation who I feel comfortable with throwing out there.
For sure. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been Matt from Dodgers Tailgate, and I'm with The Real D Rose, David Rosenthal, also from Dodgers Tailgate. Make sure to check out his podcast, The Incline, with Jake Reiner, who I mentioned earlier. He's been on Dodgers Tailgate interviews, and then with Kevin Klein as well, who will probably be coming on YouTube for us right soon. So thanks for joining us, and have a good day.